Hello, it is time. I am pressing record before I can change my mind again because it is time for me to do a studio tour, finally. I have been living here for a bit over a year and a half now, and I've never actually shown everyone the situation that I work in, in full. And I tried on multiple occasions to make this video, and every single time that I did, I was like, no, actually, I don't feel like my studio's done. Maybe I'll do it later. And then every few months, I would make some kind of weird dramatic change to my studio, and I never felt like it was complete. But I can finally officially say that this studio is complete, and it has to be because I'm moving in about 5 days. My boyfriend got a job in New Orleans, and so we're relocating there. I've already found a new studio that I'm moving to. I'm super excited for that. But I am in desperate need now of tearing down everything in this room. So it's time for me to do a studio tour. Just for a little bit of background, I started doing pottery in a community studio in my city. I live in Kansas City, and I would just kind of do everything there. I worked on open community shelves, and then eventually I got a pottery wheel, and I brought that to my third floor apartment that I was living in at the time. I think this was about 3 years ago. I can't really remember. And I basically had a 1-bedroom apartment with a pottery wheel in it and a very basic shelf, and that's kind of what I was working with. At that time, it was basically just a hobby I was doing. And then eventually I was kind of taking it more seriously, and my boyfriend and I decided to move into this much larger house that we now live in. And here I've been able to have this I think it's 100 to 150 square foot room that I've been working out of. And within here I have a pottery wheel, I have shelves, I have a reclaim system, I have lots of storage, I have a little shipment center in my basement, and I have basically everything except for a kiln, which I still do in that same community studio. I load everything into my car and I transport it there. And my cat was meowing at me, so he's now joining us for this little journey. And people ask me all the time, should I have a pottery studio in my house? And if I have a pottery studio in my house, how should I do it? And so I'm gonna kind of answer those questions, show you how I did this, how my setup works, and we'll just start over there with my wedging table. So anyways, this is my work table. Full disclaimer, my phone camera is on 0.5 zoom right now, so if this room looks a lot bigger than it is, it's because there's a weird zoom effect. I would say the most important thing when you're starting a pottery studio is to figure out what kind of work surface that you need to have. For my purposes, I basically just use this for wedging and prepping clay for throwing on the wheel, so I don't need a very big work table. Although I did neglect doing this for a really long time, and I was actually wedging everything on top of this little tiny thing, this counter on my shelves, and that was not effective. I would recommend finding some sort of actual table to work on. And the way that I did it, basically this is an IKEA table. And basically the way that I've done it here is that this is an old IKEA dining table that I'd been using. We got a new dining table when we moved into this house, and so I no longer needed this, and I was gonna just sell it, and then I realized that it made a workable work table for me to work on. So it's just this wood dining table, and then on top of it I attached hardy backer board just using Velcro. You can use a lot of different surfaces on top of wedging tables. I picked hardy backer board because it's really easy to find, it's easy to cut and shape, and it's inexpensive. And it's basically just a concrete board that's super absorbent, so that when I'm preparing clay on this, it doesn't stick, and if I need to dry clay out, this also sucks the moisture out of it. I literally attached it just using these sticky Velcro things, so if I ever want to take it off I can, and I can replace it. Then I keep a few different things at all times on my wedging table. So for one thing, I keep a scale so that I can weigh out clay. I always have just a big sponge over there so that I can wipe the table down. And that light back there people ask me about, it's just an IKEA globe lamp, and it has a Philips Hue light in it. I am actually probably going to get rid of this when I move, just because I think it's time to create a sturdier work table situation. This IKEA dining table shakes around a lot and it moves. It's not really ideal. Then just over here for my work table is my other obviously important tool, which is my pottery wheel. My wheel is a Shimpo RK Whisper. I got this, I think, about 3 years ago. And if there's one thing in a pottery studio that you're going to spend a lot of money on, it should be a wheel. A lot of times people ask me what kind of wheel they should get, and then they'll send me really cheap ones that you can find on Amazon. I know some people that do it just kind of as a hobby or really irregularly have used those and they're fine. But if wheel throwing pottery is something that you're willing to put any kind of investment into, it's definitely worth getting a more expensive wheel. I think this one was around $1,400 or $1,500 when I got it, plus shipping, so it ended up being more $1,600 to $1,700, I can't remember exactly. And at the time, this was probably the one most expensive item item that I've ever bought. So it's definitely worth it though, because this is the kind of thing that is really high quality equipment that's going to last for your entire lifetime. There's lots of quality brands of wheels that you can get. I just like Shimpo wheels because that's what I've always used and I just trust the brand. Truly, once you get into the higher end pottery wheels, they're not too different from each other. I mean, you can kind of get into the details, but ultimately, you're gonna get a high quality product that's gonna last you for probably your entire lifetime. I picked this specific model in particular because it's really compact, and when I bought it, it was going in my 1-bedroom apartment, so I wanted something super small and easy to move. And it has kind of like a vintage retro look to it. I don't know, I just like that. And then the other thing I like about this wheel is that the foot pedal also has this little handle so that you can adjust it with your hand, which sometimes is useful. A lot of times people ask if this uses a lot of electricity, and no, not from what I've noticed. My electric bill doesn't seem to be really affected by how much I'm using this. It literally is just like a wall outlet cord that you can plug into anything. Right now it's plugged into a thing that has like 6 different things plugged into it. It's never exploded, so I think it's fine. And just to kind of give you an idea of how I set up whenever I'm throwing, I first put down just one of my stools that I can sit on. This is just like a random IKEA stool. Honestly, I'm probably gonna get another stool sooner because my back kind of hurts. These aren't super comfortable and I want to get something a little more ergonomic. But for now I've been doing that, and then I plop a towel on top of it so that it doesn't hurt my butt too much. I usually put another stool down next to it. I put another towel, and this is the towel I use to clean my hands and any of my tools. And then I also always have this big slop bucket next to my wheel. This is just so that I have water while I'm throwing. I also sometimes use this to clean stuff and clean my tools. And when I do clean this, honestly, I just dig the clay out from the bottom with my hands and I throw it into another bucket and I reclaim that later. And I take this dirty water and I pour it into my backyard. Because at that point, it's basically just water with dirt in it. So I don't think my plants will care. And lastly, behind my wheel is this random table. I've had this table like forever. I don't really remember when I got it. It's just from a thrift store, and it happens to be the exact same height as my wheel, so I just keep it behind there to store all of my tools on. Then the last thing I keep over here is my little Husky shelf toolbox thing. I got this a few months ago, and I never totally found a great use for it. I should probably keep tools in it. I've just never gotten around to it. Mostly I like having extra counter space over here just so I can store pots while I'm working on them, and then I also keep an extra reclaim bucket down here, so this is just full of dry clay and trimmings. Eventually I'll put water in there and turn that into usable clay again. And then I also keep this little bucket over here, and that's full of prepped clay balls that have already been measured and wedged and are ready to throw. And I just keep them in there with a lot of plastic, and sometimes I spray it just to keep the clay moist until I'm ready to work with it. Okay, now back here along this wall is my big shelving unit. The main purpose of these shelves back here is for me to store pots on while I'm working on them. So whenever I throw something and I'm waiting for it to dry until they're hard and it's ready for trimming, I just keep them on these shelves to dry. And whenever I finish things, I just keep them on here until I'm ready to put them into the kiln. Usually most of these shelves are full of different things that I'm working on. Right now there's basically nothing because I can't make anything right now because I'm moving in 5 days. So they look pretty empty, and there's some random things. These are all cracked pots that I just need to get rid of. I have some like random buckets. I also keep wear boards on here. And basically if I'm throwing something directly on the wheel and I cut it off and I need to store it on something until it's dry, I'll just line them up on here, and the wood kind of sucks the moisture out of the bottom. I actually don't use these wear boards as much anymore because I invested in a nice bat system. It's the Dirty Girl bat system. Basically I put this onto the wheel, and then I have these little inserts that I can put on top of it, and they just kind of pop in, and then once I'm done throwing, I can take this part off with the pot on it, and that way I don't have to try to slice it and carry it off the wheel. It's just ready to go, and I can let it dry right on here. So that's what I've been using more so these days because it's just a lot more convenient. So I have just one of these main bat systems, and then I have 100 of these inserts. Other things I have on here, whoa! I'll clean that up later. Basically, there's a box of plastic sheets over here so that when I'm letting things dry, I can loosely place these over the pots, because sometimes if I don't want them to dry super quickly, or if I need to like wait a few days and keep them moist, it's helpful to have things to cover them. You can also use like cut up garbage bags or like plastic grocery bags for that. I do have a cabinet over here. I got this shelf from like the as is section in IKEA, so this cabinet doesn't actually have any shelves in it because it didn't come that way. I've never found a great way to do storage in here. I just have more of my bats in here, and eventually I need to get some wood cut so that it fits in here and I can actually store stuff in this cabinet part. And that's pretty much it for my shelves. Actually, wait, no it's not, because I have more shelves over here. These shelves, however, though, are a mess. I just kind of have like a bunch of stuff that I didn't know where else to put it, and it's just kind of like scattered all over these shelves. I have some clay down there, some pots that I'm working on. I randomly have a bunch of books up there, and I have cookbooks because my kitchen's actually right outside that door. I have my generous lotion collection and some holiday lights, even though it's February and I've been too lazy to take them down because I'm like, I'm moving, we'll just do it when we're moving, and so we still have holiday lights up. It's fine. And now we're going to actually leave my pottery studio, go through my kitchen over here. It's literally like my kitchen's right here, my studio's right here. It's like a dangerous situation. It usually results in me baking bread almost every day. And then we go through this kind of ominous door here into my scary murder basement. And you're probably like, why are you taking me into this scary basement? I actually do a lot of work down here. So for one thing, this is kind of my storage space for shipping. I keep extra cardboard down here, and then I also corrugate cardboard, as the community studio that I also work at has a corrugating machine, and so I take old paper bags, old boxes, and I shred them up like this. I have some water-soluble packing peanuts. I don't usually try to buy plastic wrapping materials because obviously it can't be recycled. However, I do end up with some of it because people know that I just collect shipping materials and recycle them, and so I get them from like friends and family that have it. Then these are all kind of like old pots that I haven't sold just because they're not up to my particular quality standards. So they kind of just live down here. Eventually I might do like a second sale or something where I get rid of some of these things, but for now I just, out of sight, out of mind. I'm not doing anything with them at the moment. And this is all of my packing boxes. I would not recommend, if you're just starting a pottery business, to buy so many boxes like I did. I got excited because you get like a discount if you buy more boxes at once, and now I just have so many boxes, and I'm moving and I'm not gonna have as much storage space as I do right now, and now I'm just like stuck with all these things. I'm also not in love with the sizes because they kind of worked with what I was making at that time and not so much anymore. But yeah, these are all my boxes. It's an absurd amount. I'm gonna have them for years. And then we go back around over here and we come to the murder door. Do not question the murder door. But then in front of the murder door is my reclaim situation. So some of those buckets that I was showing you upstairs, whenever they get full, I take that wet clay and I plop them down onto these squares of hardy backer board, and I just have them elevated on some paint cans, because if you leave the bottom of these on anything, the moisture is gonna seep through it and it's going to create mold, so you make sure that it's elevated. And I just leave them down here to dry for a few days until they're ready to be wedged and used as clay again. Alright, now everyone say bye, murder door. Okay, and then back at my studio, the only thing that I haven't shown you all yet is my desk over here in the corner. I use this as a desk. Obviously, my laptop is over here. I have a planner. I start here every day. I write down my plans for the day. Pretty basic. I'm also very disorganized, so don't come to me for organizing tips at this moment. I keep a lot of random lamps over here just because I film a lot of videos sitting here. So I like having a lot of light kind of bouncing off the walls just for better lighting on my face. I also have this LED panel light. I usually keep this either pointed over at my desk for lighting if I'm filming a video, or when I'm working on my wheel, I point it down at that so that it's super bright and I can see what I'm working on. This is a Nanlite LumaPad 25 if you're curious. It's been great for me. And that is pretty much it for everything that I have in my house. Obviously, I'm missing quite a lot of things here. I don't have my own kiln and I don't have my own glazing system in my house. I live really close by to a community studio where I go and I also volunteer there. And I basically just load all of my pieces up in those big cardboard boxes that you can get from Costco, put them in my car, and I drive them a few blocks over to the community studio. And since I'm a volunteer there, I get 24/7 access to the building. And then I, or anyone in the community, can use the kilns there and do community firings. So basically my work gets put in and fired with lots of other people's work in a giant kiln. And I pay 2 cents per cubic inch for bisque firing, which is the first firing that you do. And then I also pay 2 cents per cubic inch for glaze firing. Also included in the glaze firings is we have a glaze room in that studio, and so I just used the glazes there because the price is already included and I might as well, and I like the glazes there. Especially because this is a rental and I wasn't planning on living in this house for more than a couple years, and so I didn't want to have to pay to rewire everything to get my own kiln. If I was gonna think about the best and worst things about having a pottery studio in my house, I would say the best thing is that it makes it super easy to just work on things kind of incrementally throughout the day or throughout the week, especially if you're trying to do it and don't have a lot of time or have a lot of other things going on. It's easy to just have it in your house where you don't have to commute anywhere. You can just work on stuff. You know, if something is drying and it's at the perfect state, you can kind of just do it really quickly and then move on and do something else. It's nice in the winter because I don't have to go anywhere, especially if it's snowing or there's bad weather. I can just work here. If you're someone that likes working from home, it might work well for you. However, I am not. So I would say the worst thing for me about having a pottery studio in my house is that it is really difficult for me to actually focus on doing things. Since pottery for me is more of a business as opposed to a hobby, it's really difficult for me to kind of like get in the zone and actually work on things for an entire day when I have so much going on in my house around me. The mess can be really difficult to contain. So like I try not to stress too much if this room itself is dirty, but a lot of times like my shoes carry clay throughout the house, or if I'm cleaning things, the mess kind of explodes from in here into like the bathrooms or the sinks elsewhere. And even if like this room itself is dirty, it can be hard for me to relax when I'm at home because I'm like, I have this giant mess and I want to clean it up. And living in a clean living space is super important to me, and so that is difficult sometimes to manage. And I've also just generally never been someone that loves working at home. I've always liked going somewhere and having like coworkers and people that I see every day. So it does get kind of lonely when you're just working at home all the time. When we're moving to New Orleans, I'm moving into an actual like shared community studio space where I'm gonna have my own private studio within a larger studio. I'm still not gonna have like my own kiln and all that necessarily like to myself, but I'm going to have like a dedicated workspace within a larger studio where I'm gonna be working in my little private studio, but also like within the building. So I'm not gonna have to do the whole big transport things in my car mess. It's all gonna be in one place under one roof. And so this is kind of the end for me of having a pottery studio in my house. I'm going to be living in a little 1-bedroom apartment with my boyfriend. We're downsizing pretty significantly from the house that we're living in right now, just because he's gonna be working in an office. I found a studio that I can commute to, so we don't need a huge living space. And I'm excited to kind of get this out of my living space and experiment with doing it in a different way where I'm gonna have a workplace in my home place, which I think for me is the best place that I could be for that. So I'm excited. And now it is time for me to tear all of this down, put it in a U-Haul, or actually not a U-Haul. I think we rented a Penske truck. We're gonna put it in a truck, we're driving it to New Orleans, and I'm gonna rebuild it in my new studio. And so that was it. I did it, I finally did it. I made my pottery studio tour. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll read all the comments and I'll respond to any questions anyone has. Otherwise, thank you for watching.